Hi friends, it's Janine Richards from Q101. Welcome to The Tour Life. Grab your all-access pass and join me behind the scenes of the music industry. Together, we'll discover how to live happier and healthier lives doing what we love. Today's guest is a longtime friend of mine. Back in 2019, when I was still trying to find my way as a high school teacher, and before either of us had said I do, I had the pleasure of sitting down with my good friend Chris Hershman. Chris and I go way back to middle school, and watching him evolve into this creative powerhouse whose work has been published by NPR, the Grammys, Rolling Stone, Paste, and Consequence of Sound, among many others, has been an absolute thrill. From his earliest days snapping photos for our high school yearbook, to capturing moments for music legends like Switchfoot, Alabama Shakes, Hozier, and the incredible Mavis Staples. Chris's path has been marked by an insatiable drive to create and capture beautiful experiences wherever he goes. In this honest conversation between friends, we discuss the grind behind the glamour, how a camera became his tool for storytelling, the influence of his grandparents that he only realized fully after they passed, that leap of faith that he took touring with a band fresh out of high school, and the importance of gratitude through it all. Since we recorded, Chris, with the help of his equally talented wife Elena, was the one behind the camera at my wedding. It was a day filled with tears, joy, and tons of dancing. Seriously, I only left the dance floor 2 times. Ask DJ Moonlanding. And having them there to capture it all made it even more special. Here is my conversation with my truly inspiring friend, Chris Hershman. Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you, Janine?
Oh, I'm very well. I'm excited to talk to you, to chat a little bit.
Thanks for having me on your podcast. You texted me a while back. You were like, I got this idea. And I was like, go for it. And now we're doing it. I'm really excited for you. A lot of people have a lot of ideas. Very few people execute ideas. So I'm happy that this is something that you got the ball rolling on. Proud of you.
Thank you. I'm excited. You inspire me. Mm-hmm. We've known each other since
middle school.
8th grade.
Yeah.
Middle school. Yeah.
Yep.
It's wild. And that's when you first picked up a camera, right? Like in high school for yearbook?
Yeah, for yearbook, that was the first time I was introduced to shooting for something. My grandma was a photographer and my grandpa, they used to shoot weddings. They were like the photographers in the family. I always saw her toting around a really nice camera and stuff like that, but I never picked it up to make anything of it until high school. Yeah, and that's what I do now. I'm a photographer and filmmaker.
I didn't know you had family that did that. That's nice to know.
I didn't know until they passed away as to how big their photography like legacy was. It was like, you know, you see a lot at funerals of like photos in the past that, you know, family members dig up and stuff like that, and people, you know, eulogies and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that my grandparents were such big photographers, but apparently they were.
That's really neat. So, you know, you're little, you pick up a camera, you just start to shoot for the yearbook. And then what happened after high school? And how did you, because remember, we didn't see each other for years.
Right.
And then I started working at WBEZ, and then we started hanging out again. So what happened between that whole time?
Well, I mean, the reason why we don't know is because Instagram was not invented yet. So we had nobody knew what anybody was doing. No, all joking aside, I went to college for maybe a semester, and then I got asked from a band to go on tour, a local band here from Indiana. And I was like, yeah, I'll go on a tour. So we did a month of the East Coast, and I got back home and I was like, okay, I think I found my thing, my calling. I was playing drums at the time. And, you know, I had a camera along, but the thing was like, I loved touring. I loved moving around the country, and I was like, I don't care what it is. I want to get out on the road and move around, whether it's a camera or an instrument. I want to get out there. And so from, a really early on age, I was really addicted to, going out and traveling as much as I possibly could.
I had no idea.
Yeah. The more you know.
Yeah. So then what?
Yeah. So I got back and, I'm from Indiana, so it's not like the land of opportunity for creative folk. So, I went to the one place that made sense to work, Guitar Center. And so I started at Guitar Center, and a couple months into that, I was asked if I could move to Chicago. So I transferred my job to the Chicago location, and I just started meeting gobs and gobs of people because it was like the only Guitar Center downtown Chicago. So anyone who was a professional musician traveling through town and didn't know anything about a good local shop would just go to the Guitar Center. And if they were a drummer or, I later became an assistant manager, but I met so many people and ended up going to so many shows. One of my favorite stories is I was helping this gentleman with a funny accent, and I was just like, hey man, where are you from? And he's like, oh, I'm from Iceland. I was like, oh, cool, man. You ever hear of Sigur Rós? And he's like, yeah, I'm the drummer. And I was like, oh my gosh. It's like that here. And so I just started meeting like all of my favorite bands traveling through, and then I was pretty fearless when it came to asking bands if I could join them on the road or if I can assist them in a video or photo. And so I think at a young age, just being exposed to basically walking into meeting your favorite musicians and working with them on a one-on-one basis, and then you build that oh, I'm here to help them and they need help and I could be helpful, and if I'm a good hang, like maybe we can make something happen. And so I think it's from those early years at Guitar Center, helping musicians and understanding how to service their needs and put them first and not, myself a fan of their music. I've always just kind of stood in a place where like, I'm here to help you guys do your thing. And however I can help, whether it's, drum teching or playing a musician or playing an instrument or photographing it, like I want to help. And that led to 10 years of working on and off stages with bands.
Did you ever think that was something you could do?
No. I specifically have this memory when I started my first website for photography, and I was sitting in Indiana, and I was like, done. I did it. I created it. Here it is, chrishershman.com. It's got my photos. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, how's anybody going to find this? Like, how is anybody going to find this? Like, how is anybody going to know? I have no idea. I was like, all I know is that I needed one. So I immediately felt very kind of like, I don't know if this is going to work out. It's like the first time I launched my website, I was like, oh crap, it's not like people just go straight to a new website created. So that's when I decided I was going to have to just move to Chicago, and I'm going to have to meet people, and I'm going to have to not wait for people to stumble on a website. So I think, at an early age, I was just really drawn to getting into the spaces and places where people are filing in to meet each other. And whether that's a music store or a show or an event, I spent 10 years trying my hardest to go and meet everybody I possibly could, learn from all these people. I had a lot of energy back then. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And I had absolutely no idea that I would even become a filmmaker. I think one of the funniest stories is that, I was a photographer coming out of high school, and Nikon had released a new camera that had video features. And this is right at the tail end of my Guitar Center career, where I'm like, okay, I've done everything I possibly can at this place. I've shadowed drum buyers. I've gone to California and attended and walk through corporate. I was 22 or 23 years old. I wanted to work at corporate because I was just like, I want to run this place if I'm gonna work here. Like, I wanted to see how high up I could go. And they just weren't ready or didn't know what I was really serious, like the passion that I really had for, my job. But they honored my request to have me come in and walk through the space. I was just so young, I don't think they knew what to do with me. But they liked the passion. They didn't know.
Wait, so you went to corporate?
I went to corporate, yeah, when I was really young.
That's so funny. So that actually reminds me of, remember when that one, the first show that I invited you to, the Courtney Barnett one?
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah, let's go talk to them. Like I'm gonna go talk to them. And I was like, we can't talk to them because at NPR, you're not supposed to make a big deal about anybody, right?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to even really acknowledge that they're there.
Yeah.
And so it totally threw me off. But from what you told me earlier, now I understand where that comes from. And that's good, right? Because that's how you got these opportunities. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And that's a fine line, right? Is how do you talk to someone but not make them want to wiggle out of it or feel uncomfortable? How do you actually have an engaging conversation with someone? Unless you just if you're truly interested and you're used to having conversations a lot with people like that, you'll find something interesting that they want to talk about, not something that just you want to talk about, So, I don't know. I think years of having to talk to people forces you how to learn how to converse with people and make them feel comfortable. And I just did that for so many years, and I was like, I don't even think about it. But the funny thing is, Nikon released that camera that had video features in it, and then I became a filmmaker because a camera manufacturer just wanted to, put a new feature in their camera.
Previously, DSLR cameras didn't have video features?
No. Video in DSLR is, let's just say, a still relatively new idea, even though it's been around for probably 10 years. It's still a relatively new concept to have video in those digital cameras. So when they first started coming out, I was just like, okay, this is cool. I'm going to just play around and ask my buddy's friend if I could film a music video of them or just to film them so I could test out my camera. And it was Ryan Luciani, and he was in a band called Empires, and they were playing Lincoln Hall. And, I filmed all over in this venue and pieced together this music video, and I overheard them saying that they wanted to make a music video to one of their songs. So I picked that song that I overheard them talking about, and I cut together a music video, and then they were like, man, okay, this is good, and it's good timing. We are being asked to submit a video to be in this competition to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. So they were part of this, battle of the bands for the cover of Rolling Stone. And they used my video as a submission to, get into that contest or something like that. It was either that or, the video itself was just on their profile whenever you went to go check out who they were on Rolling Stone. But the point was, my very first attempt at making video went to rollingstone.com. And I was like, oh, I can't stop here. I have to keep going.
That is so wild.
Yeah. And, it's just been this really funny, strange, running into bands that need video and then being there at the right time. I got asked to film a session, a Hearya session, and it's Hearya.com, and that's kind of like Audio Tree before Audio Tree was around. And it was just a band playing in a studio live. And the guy wanted it filmed, so my buddy Steve Shirk asked me to come in, and the band was the Alabama Shakes. So the Alabama Shakes were playing to 300 people the night that they came through town, and I was filming this session of them performing in the studio. And I guess they were on this tour and didn't have enough time to slow down and film a proper recording or a proper music video. So the record label reached out and was like, hey, this music video in the studio that you captured is actually perfect for like an official music video that we would like to use to release to let everybody know who the Alabama Shakes is. So because it was this live performance, and if you know Brittany Howard of the Alabama Shakes, she's just this like absolute amazing powerhouse vocalist. And to see her perform and pull it off live, you're like, oh my gosh, that is real talent, right? So the video took off, and now this video's got like 34 million views or something on YouTube right now. So this is like one of my first music videos, is the Alabama Shakes, and it gets turned into their official music video. And all because Nikon decided that they were going to put video features into their camera. And I was already shooting bands, now I'm just shooting video. And then that's when I was like, oh my gosh, the power of video is like outrageous, But you have to be in the right place at the right time. Not even like, it's not like lightning strikes, it's not like luck, I think there's this really awesome saying about luck is opportunity plus preparedness, or something like that.
You have to be prepared for it. Yeah.
I was prepared for it, and I was preparing for moments like that. And I think that's kind of just what happened over the last couple 10 plus years, is just, getting into the right space and being prepared for people to call. And like now I'm a Nikon Ambassador, which is this lovely little title that Nikon gave. There's like 30 of us. And it's, folks who use their cameras genuinely and have an inspiring story and like to tell the story about their equipment. But also, I remember 5 years ago sitting down with them, and this just happened like a year ago, that they dubbed me an ambassador. But 5 years ago, I was sitting there and I was like, all right, like, my buddy Mike, who runs that program, I was like, what's it going to take to be an ambassador? Like, I didn't know I wanted to be one, but now I know that they exist, and I'm like, how can I do that? And I just remember him being like, dude, you got to grow a business, man. You can't just be, like really awesome at it. Like, I want to see you live off of using your camera and operate a business and grow it into something really big, man. Do it for you, and then I'll just keep watching. And I think that was a really big inspiration for me. I was like, yeah, like, well, I should make this a business, And the last 5 years have decided that this is a business for me. It's no longer one of the many things that I like to dabble in. It's something that I take very serious because I want to see how big I can get it and how large I can grow the thing.
I like that. I know you went like on a bus tour at one point, right?
One of the bands that may not mean a lot to some people, but means a lot to me, was the band called Switchfoot. And they were a rock band from the early 2000s that I just grew up listening to. And later on in life, I kept running into them. And I was like, hey, man, do you guys need, like, can I just jump on tour with you guys and take some photos? And I did 3 dates with them in the Midwest, and we got along really well. And it was really fun. And, I didn't think it'd turn into anything from there, but they asked me if I could come out to San Diego and photograph their studio because they were about to make a new record. And I was like, yeah, I would love to do that. So I make it out to San Diego, and I just loved it. And I was like, guys, I want to move here. Like, if I move here, like, would that be okay with you? And they were like, yeah, we don't care, for sure. Like, you're very welcome. So I lived out there for 2 years and had just gobs of opportunities with him. One of my favorite things was that we went to the Philippines to check out a nonprofit that they were going to take on tour. So that was really great. It was my first international film project, flying to the Philippines. And, just got to live on a tour bus for a few months at a time and come back home to San Diego and, experience what that life was like. And then I ended up coming back to Chicago to work on some commercial work. I've had the pleasure of working with some great brands like Shure microphones, Nikon cameras, and LaCie hard drives. And those are all like products that I use on a daily basis. So kind of the shtick of mine is like, I like to do and work on projects that actually mean something to me and like have some kind of personal connection with the work I do or the, the things I'm passionate about. And they've just all kind of serendipitously found me at the same time that I found them. And we've had the opportunity to work together. And it's been really cool.
So you do a lot of freelance work, right? That's basically the bulk of it?
Yes. So I like to say I'm independent, just like on my own. I'm out there kind of doing my own thing. Freelance, just whenever I hear the word, I just think of more of a struggle than I do any kind of successes.
That's definitely different from the corporate job you wanted at Guitar Center.
Yeah, it is. But I think my thing was like, I have always just wanted to do my own thing and feel like I'm best when I'm doing my own thing. So, like, I have a lot of ideas and a lot of input that I want to, produce things. I want to make things happen. And I feel like sometimes in larger corporate collaborative efforts, like, stuff just doesn't get done or doesn't get done quick enough, or you have to jump through what I like to call a bunch of hoopla to make stuff happen. And I'm kind of anti-hoopla. So when you're working for yourself, it's just, the how high can you take it? It's just you. You're the only limit, the only barrier. And that's kind of what I need in a work environment, is to just have myself is like the one limiting factor. That and finances, financing your project or dealing with, like I'll produce Super Bowl commercial. I don't care. Give me the money. I'll go make it. I'll spend your money, and not on me. Like I'll spend it on the production. I'll make something great. But you have to manage your budget. You have to manage the client's budget. And, that's tough being independent and freelance. But at the end of the day, it's just, I think I just know what works best for me. And what worked best for me was to just go out on my own.
Yeah, it enables you to have like creative freedom and work on things that you actually care about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of travel involved, right?
Yeah, the last, I'd say 2 years have been primarily traveling for work, which is, feels, well, I mean, I was touring with the band, but that was travel with one client, one person. But now the clients are, they vary quite a bit. And yeah, I'd say the last like 2-3 years have just been primarily shot on locations. So I've had to really change my workflow from a bunch of big heavy stuff that I can throw in the back of my truck and drive to any place in Chicago to, okay, how do I fit this in X amount of bags so that I can get into the airport and maximize my packed bags and checked bags. And it's been a totally different system that I'm still evolving and trying to get used to every day. So yeah, it's a lot of travel right now.
So what was something that you didn't expect to have to deal with when it came to traveling that you've sort of figured something out for?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole process of flying is kind of sucky if it's not set up right. Like, if you don't have the proper luggage for your gear, and you don't have simple things like pre-check, those are things that if you don't do those things and you don't have them and you do that process over and over again, you're just going to get sick and tired of standing in lines and having broken gear or getting too many checked bag fees or just like the weight of luggage, and I remember just not wanting to do it anymore because the whole process just sucked. So I had to really refine the way I travel so that I'm more comfortable, that I get in and out quicker, And it's a more painless process. And at the end of the day, like signing up for like American AA Advantage, something that keeps track of your miles so that you can actually benefit from flying that often. Those are small things, but like if you don't really kind of, look into those things, it was a lot more difficult than it needed to be. You know what I mean? So that was pretty unexpected. I didn't think that I'd have to jump through all the hoops and refining the way I traveled, but yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're spending a lot of time flying place to place. You're having to deal with like kind of all of the bureaucracy and stuff, and then just making sure you don't end up paying $1 million for it to get your gear across the country. How does it feel? Like, how does that affect your like well-being?
Yeah, that's a excellent question. I mean, for me, when I'm at home, the first 2 days of like being back home, I'm just like, I don't move. I don't leave the house. I'm just so happy to be in my own bed and, see my dog. And then that's when it hits me that I'm like, oh, I'm so happy to be home. But I'm like, maybe 3 or 4 days into being home, I'm kind of like, oh, I really missed being out on the road. And then like 2 days into being out on an assignment on the road, I'm like, this is great. The best feeling in the world. I love being out here. It's so purposeful. I feel like I'm getting out of the house. I'm doing stuff. And then like a week into it, I'm like, oh man, what day is it? Where am I? Who am I? It's kind of a lot of questioning, a lot of like, what are you building toward? Because like I come home and I get to work on my personal life, which is fun for me. Like I get to work on music that I'm trying to progress, or I have my motorcycle. You and I we've gone on motorcycle rides. I love coming home and relaxing real hard. And then I like going out and working real hard. But it's hard to know if you're actually making a lot of progress in your personal life when you're gone so far, away from home. So that's something that I'm trying to hone in a little bit more, is like, how do I make sure that when I'm gone for long periods of time, or even just like, you don't have to be gone for long for it to feel like an interruption into your life. You know what I mean? Like, think about not really knowing where your weekends are, where your time to rest is. So like finding time to rest when it's not the weekend. Luckily, I don't have to like jump back into a grinding situation where I don't have the opportunity to rest. But I try to build at least a day into my rest as soon as I get home. I've got buddies like Corey Pop, who's like the greatest cinematographer out there right now. He's shooting like, every Netflix show under the sun. Now, I don't know if he sleeps. I don't know if he has a day where he told me the other day, we were working in Texas, and he's like, man, I think I've been home for maybe 2 weeks max for this entire year. We're in August.
Wow. Like
paying for a place in Chicago that you've been there 2 weeks out of the entire year, like forget that. But also like, if I were that busy, I would do that too. Someone really hired me that often.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that could really lead to burnout, though. And I was talking to someone else I had on the podcast, and to Macy Taylor, and I mentioned to him about being like somebody said something about being a professional homeless person. And I feel like in that situation, it's like you just check out, like you don't live anywhere because you're just gone all the time. So, right? I mean,
I was doing that a lot when I lived in Chicago, because I didn't feel like I wanted to do anything to my home. I didn't want to like spruce it up. I barely wanted to clean it because I was like not even there. It's like so hard to really invest in that. But now I live in Indiana, and I have a different situation where I'm working on, cleaning up my space, not like just cleaning up, but like really growing on it and building some kind of home. And that feels better at the end of the day. So like when I come home, I guess I was tired of feeling like I'm not getting anything done in my personal life. So by moving to Indiana, I feel like I come home and I immediately feel at home. Like I was dying to feel at home. And I feel like maybe some people, if you live in a metropolitan area and as soon as you get back, you just go see your friends, and sometimes your friends are home. Like you see your best friends, you cook a dinner, you see your dog or something. But for me, like Indiana felt like going home and like getting rest. And that's just something that worked for me. It's not everybody needs to do that, but I felt like I wanted to take a season where I try something new. Like the thing about me is like I constantly change. I'm changing as a person. I'm changing my habits. I'm changing my approach to everything to see if there is a better way. And I don't want to be in a position where I lead to burnout. I don't want to get in a position where I ever pump out a piece of work, visual work that doesn't meet my standard because I was too tired or I was too rushed. So this season is about going home and feeling rested and feeling like I'm giving my projects and my clients and the people in my life, like the real people in my life, as much attention as I possibly can. And that's new for me. It feels like a totally different, season of my life. I don't know what the next one is, but yeah, I've enjoyed feeling like I'm back home.
You mentioned a lot of things, and you also said that there's things that you do to keep you stable and to help you manage things. So what changes have you made over time? Like how has the way that you deal with balancing work and life evolved over time?
I think on the business side of things, that's been a big focus of mine, is how do I sustain a company and a business that is obviously bigger than me? And that is to take people in under my wings as much as I possibly can to help people get to where they want to go through teaching them what they need to know and what they want to know. And I've always felt like, working with Nikon has been this opportunity for me to give back to, people who tune into their channel who want to learn about what it is they can do with this equipment. And so I've tried to do that in my personal life, is really work with people and develop their skills as camera operators, as editors. And I'm very rarely am I working alone. I'm typically working with a group of people, and I'm trying to not do everything on my own. I'm trying to do as much as I possibly can with other people. And that has been something that I feel like has been different and helpful. And at the very beginning, I just thought it was, it was just like I was alone in the whole thing. And, you kind of are, but there's a way to incorporate people into what it is you want to do. And everybody's at different stages. That's what we got to realize, is not everybody is ready to like go out there and tour and travel for a few years. Maybe people need to stay at home, but they want to learn how to video edit, or they want to learn how to do, a certain thing that they don't have to leave the home for. Like, I like empowering those people, teaching those people, and showing them what it is that I've learned so that they can try their hand. And that makes me feel like I'm not entirely alone in this process. So that makes me, kind of go take the next step.
Have you had a situation in which someone didn't quite understand who was really important in your life?
If they did, I don't know if they're still around. It's just one of those things, like it's just my life. It's not a lifestyle. doesn't even really feel like a choice. This is just me, you know? So like if it's too much or too fast, yeah, I mean, I had a girlfriend once tell me that she felt like she lived in just the shadows of everything that I had going on, you know, and she was trying to succeed in an acting career and stuff like that. I was very supportive. Like, I'm never, ever trying to put my agenda in my life, and especially in a relationship, like a priority over someone else's things they're trying to get done with their life. But I think it just was that way, you know, it just is that way for some people, and that's hard. I'm still not in a relationship, so maybe relationally it's difficult, I think, to really find someone who understands the thrill of, you know, the job that I'm in. And it's hard. It's just hard to keep a balanced relationship, to be honest, because there is no balance. I'm trying to find the balance in my everyday life and trying to find a place, and it's hard to really begin a relationship and keep up, especially in nowadays, you know, communication. It's hard to really stay in touch as often as communication leads us to believe that we should stay in touch. That's tough to manage.
So how do you find the balance? What do you do? What are like some practical things that help keep you level-footed?
I love cooking. So when you're away from home, sometimes it's hard to really control exactly how you'd like to eat. So when I come home, I like to make my own meals if I can, and really prepare something that I want to eat and focus on the craft of cooking. And I'd say it's something I'm very passionate about, like just like making music, how you just like, you know, tweedle for hours in the basement, you know, making music and cutting demos. It's like the same thing for the kitchen for me. So that's not something I can do when I'm away. So it feels nice to come home and do that. That helps me kind of rebalance. Riding my motorcycle is one of the biggest rebalancing things. I was out today and I was just riding around in the back roads of Indiana, and it just feels really freeing for me. So like any kind of activity that I can do on my own like that kind of gives me a lot of joy. I go out to eat a lot on my own. Like, been spending a lot of alone time, you know, to be honest. And for 10 years, I would come home to Chicago and just like be surrounded by so many people and roommates. And if I wasn't out every night catching up with someone, I felt like something was wrong. So I'm just going through the season where I'm trying to really enjoy being alone. And I really do enjoy it.
Have you ever thought about floating in a sensory deprivation tank? Because that's a lot of alone time.
You know, activities like, you know, motorcycle and flying. I dabble with flying as well. Although you do that with someone else typically, you know, that's pretty alone, a long period of time. Or sailing. I've been doing some sailing, and sometimes you'll sail alone for a while. But I have yet to float. I don't know if I like being alone and doing nothing. I kind of like being alone and doing something.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, because it's like you're on a motorcycle. So you're enjoying the outdoors. You're by yourself, but you're able to fully be there. Is that maybe what you're after?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a real, like, I don't know what it is, but since it is like something that like when I come home, I just want to sleep. I like have to take small baby steps to get out of the house. I'm not a very outdoorsy person like at the heart of it. Because I don't know. I always feel like that's so weird to admit, because people are always like, I love the outdoors. I love hiking. I don't. I just don't. I burn easy. I get too hot. I don't like being sweaty. And I think a lot of that people are just like, they associate with like laziness and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, like, I like working on projects inside, and like, you know, my guitars are inside and food's inside. I don't know, you know, so I don't really start conversations with, I don't like going outside.
Oh, that's great. So what are some things that have, like when you're traveling, right? It's pretty easy to kind of pick up bad habits, I've heard. So what are some of those that you've had to struggle with, and how did you deal with, like, getting back?
Yeah, I think drinking on airplanes has been like a bad habit that I picked up. Depending on if you get an upgrade or something, alcohol may be free. And sometimes I'm kind of a sucker for like an open bar, especially if it's in the sky. So that's been a bad habit I kind of picked up. And I'll typically just do that like when I'm on my way home from a job, not like, I definitely wouldn't do that on the way to a job.
And when you're home, you just take some time off right after anyway, right? So does that helps?
I'm sleeping for 7 days anyways. No, kidding. It's just I like to celebrate the small things, so I consider it a small celebration if I'm like coming home, Bad habits on the road.
What about good habits? Any good habits?
You know what? I started writing when I'm on planes. It is a habit for me to also like write and journal when I'm on a plane. And so I'll write whatever the airport code is, like, ORD to DFW or, DFW to JFK. And then I'll be like, here's what happened. So kind of compartmentalizing my time on the ground and writing about it when I'm in the sky has been really fun. Because I love flying and because I love flight, it's easy for commercial flights to kind of get real boring if you're doing it really often. So I try to use that as a way for me to not get too resentful of the travel and just make it fun, just a little bit of fun, and also remember. So I try to write down as much as I possibly can remember. That's been a good habit, and so that happens only pretty much when I travel.
That's really cool. Do you think it helps you practice gratitude too, because you're able to kind of lay it all out and like see kind of where you're at? And
yeah. Oh, for sure. I think it's part meditative. I think you meditate on what you've been through, and then you just pick out the things that seem to stick out the most as like being the important things to write down. And then you realize what was the most important to you. And then the second bit to it is I don't have a lot of, like, my dad's a brilliant man. He's so smart. I love the way his brain works. But I wish I had more of his thoughts written down, especially when he was going through the early 20s and 30s and stuff like that. I just wish I could have heard more about his adventures. So I'm trying to kind of maybe leave a bit of a catalog of adventures behind for, whoever, if ever I give life to a child, something to really look back and be like, oh, this is what he was up to. Cool. But like hearing it from me, from my handwritten words.
That's so cool. So what's the last thing you wrote in there?
I probably wrote about a wedding I just attended a couple weeks ago.
Oh, tell me about the outfit, because I remember I heard you telling your mom something about that.
Oh, yeah. So basically, I had left the wedding and I came back in my California outfit, which was a pair of like Patagonia bright neon blue shorts with a white linen short sleeve button up. And then I stole one of these older ladies' straw hats, and I basically look like Mick Jagger floating around this reception. But I came back because I think I left something there, and that's why I came back. The night was a little fuzzy, to be honest. It was very much toward the end. There wasn't a lot of people there. But, yeah, and then Love Shack came on. I think it was Love Shack. No, it was Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And when you just feel the rhythm and it just hits you and the people are there and the dancing and the lights, I just got sucked right back into the party and I started dancing in a ridiculous outfit. So that was fun. That was funny. I'm pretty sure I wrote about that. So, moments like that are something I would write about.
That's so fun. I love that.
they help.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time. So I wanted to ask you, what's the best piece of advice that someone's given you that you feel has really helped guide you?
I think it's maybe something that I give to someone else that would be helpful. And that's, there's always a next step. The instance came up for me teaching technology to my mother. I'm trying to get her antiquated to, running QuickBooks and just signing into iCloud, and there's 1,000 passwords for everything. And the biggest question that would come up is that she's like, I don't know where to go next. And I'm like, okay, all you have to do is read the prompts, and there's always a next step. So you're stopping short, you're not reading the signs, and you're giving up. Or you could read the signs and make a decision and a choice and decide to move forward. And I just think that is definitely a way that we approach life and the things that we want in life, and the way that we go about, like I can't imagine a younger version of myself like knowing exactly how to get to where I am now, but I can imagine that I just didn't stop trying to figure it out. And I would just suggest to a lot of people, my advice is to just there's always a way. Try one way. If it didn't work, try another way. There's always another step to take toward where you want to go. So, if you haven't done the extremes, the things that you're scared to go do, that might be the big obvious, like, oh, well, I can't go do this because of that. Well, then you might need to sell your very important thing that you don't want to let go of, but would enable you to do the thing you want to do. Who knows? You may have to give up a lot of your comforts and your risks. You may have to risk a lot. And I think a lot of people want to be very comfortable. And we have to constantly fight comfort, our own comfort levels. And none of what happened in my life and my career was comfortable. In fact, the entire time has been pretty uncomfortable, But I don't think I'm fighting to be in a comfortable place. As I'm getting my 30s, I'm trying to get a little more comfortable, but my 20s, there was nothing comfortable about it. And I'm not out here doing it for bragging rights. I'm just doing it because I don't know what else to do with my life other than this. Nothing else makes sense. Even if I wanted to stop it, mathematically, nothing makes more sense. But luckily, I'm just the most passionate at what it is that I'm doing. So the advice is just keep doing it. Find the next step and try the next thing. If you're trying to get on tour, if one band's telling you no, there's probably 100,000 other bands that are going to tell you no as well, but one might say yeah. If you want to do anything in life, there's just going to be a lot of no's, but keep going until you get a couple yeses or a maybe.
I love that. And it actually reminded me of I got a message from one of my students from last year, and he's in college now. And so he basically doesn't feel like college is where he needs to be. And so he's thinking should I drop out while I can still get my money back? And I didn't really know what to say. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because I feel like that's kind of it. That's kind of like, it's like give it a chance,
talk
right?
To mom and dad.
But it's like, and I don't mean about dropping out of college, right? But it's just I feel like the real question is he doesn't know if he's in the right direction. When do you know that you need to make a change? And when do you know that you need to stick with it?
I think there's value to finishing things that you start. But I think there's also value to following your heart. And if the gut feeling inside you isn't so 100% for sure that you know what it is that you want, then you should finish the thing out. Because that's how I get a lot of times. I'm like, oh, I don't know if this feels like 100% like I should be doing it. But on the flip side, I don't have the 100% the answer of what it is I want to do. So in a case like that, you wait until you find 100% certainty. Or at least that's what happened to me. I was very unsure about the first couple semesters of college. And then I went on that tour and I found some certainty. And when I came back, guess what? I tried to finish it out. But after, so even after I knew, I still tried to finish it out. I was like, okay, this is 200% certainty that this is what I want to go do. I hope that helps. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's almost like you want to give it a chance, right? And it's like, I feel like everything that we do in life, it all kind of leads up to something. But like you were talking about being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, it's like maybe that's part of the discomfort, and feeling, pushing your way through it is really what the learning process is. And like, that's really what's going to get you somewhere. Even if, maybe ultimately you don't end up sticking with it, but it's like pushing past that uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah. I mean, there's very few jobs that, or a career path, like as soon as you start getting into it, it's just fame and glory. You know what I mean? You're just dealing with the same shit, just packaged a little differently, with maybe more understanding guidelines or rules or bosses, or maybe your own boss, but it's still hard. Just because you're doing something that's more along the lines of what you want to do doesn't mean it's going to be peaches and cream. So understanding that there is going to be discomfort. So it's like, if school's uncomfortable, like, don't think that not being in school is going to be any less, uncomfortable. It's still going to be just as comfortable. That's why I think it's good to be really certain about things like that, because you don't want to get known for being wishy-washy. And I think I had a fear of that when I was young. I felt like people perceived me as being wishy-washy. I was like, nah, I'm just searching for the thing that it is I want to do. And then I would bounce to one thing after the next and be like, oh yeah, this is equally as hard or uncomfortable. But when photo and video and music found me, I was like, okay, I can run with this. Like, I can be uncomfortable for the rest of my life in this. Like, life is uncomfortable. It's weird being a human. It's weird waking up. It's weird having to maintain relationships. It's weird having to feed ourselves several times a day. It's weird that podcasts exist. It's weird that television is something that we get so much joy out of. And it's something that fuels a job for hundreds of thousands of people to create fake reality that we enjoy watching back. I don't know. It's weird. So it's like, I can't pretend like I think there is a perfect life out there. No matter how perfect we get our own lives, there's still so much injustice and so much, the Amazons are still on fire, no matter how balanced my life is. So I think walking through life with just a sense of humble gratitude toward everyone's personal journey in life, and having respect for that, and for people to find their place in this strange revolving planet. I think things like this, what we're doing is, my hopes is that by discussing it, we're not glorifying our positions in lives. I think the whole point is to really show how other people are doing it, how they're doing it, and how they're keeping good balance. And I think that's great. I think we need to be encouraging other people to find good balance, and to encourage people to start or get started down maybe a touring or a music or a visual career path. And that's what I hope that this can serve. And I believe we should all try to listen and contribute to more initiatives like this.
That was awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad I got you to join me. Thank you so much for having me on, and for being my friend for all these years, and for going to awesome shows with me and inviting me to shows. And I really appreciated your drive
and continual support as well within my career. You've been a really rad supporter, so I'm here to support you. You rock.
Thank you so much for joining us on the tour life. Please remember to rate and review the show, and also to share with someone you love. You are truly the key to our growth. For updates on my guests, my own personal reflections, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content, follow me everywhere at J9Richards.
Are you into weird, spooky, and strange history? Horrifying History tells you about the side of history that people don't normally talk about. We tell the tales of haunted places, infamous true crimes, unsolved mysteries, the paranormal, and then we look to history to see where the truth actually lies. Want to get spooky with us?
Horrifying History, part of the Believe Network. Just search BLEAV on YouTube or wherever you listen.